In this video, you're going to delve into coordinate input, which is the basis of geometry creation. In later videos, we'll go over more details on drawing objects. Open your My First Coordinate drawing. We are now going to practice using different coordinate input methods to draw objects. As mentioned before, all geometry created in AutoCAD is based on the Cartesian coordinate system, which is a three-dimensional grid with an X, a Y, and a Z axis. Looking at the coordinate readout in the status bar, you can see three numbers that represent the absolute X, Y, and Z. We are going to concentrate on the two-dimensional drawing creation using only the X and Y axis. For now, ignore the X or Z axis. To help understand the coordinate system, we're going to change the limits. Type limits. For the lower corner, enter -5, -3, and enter. For the upper corner, enter a +5 and a +3, and enter. We want to zoom to the limits of the grid to fill the screen. Use the shortcut keys, Z, enter, A, enter, and now the limits are filling the screen. You're going to draw a rectangle that is 10 inches long and 6 inches high, and it should start at -5, -3 in the lower left corner of our limits. This will help you understand positive and negative directions along the two axes X and Y. Select the rectangle tool, move your cursor to the lower corner, click when the readout reads -5, -3. These are the absolute coordinates. Pick. Now as you move your cursor, the coordinate readout is displaying relative values. Move your cursor to the upper corner, reads 10, 6. That's the relative distance, 10 in the X direction from the last point you picked, and 6 in the Y direction. Click to lock that. Save your drawing. Select the line command and start the line at 0, 0. Move your cursor straight along the horizontal X-axis towards the right. Observe the dynamic input. It now shows polar relative distance and angle. The angle 0 runs along the X-axis towards the right. Pause and look at the status bar readout. It is displaying the relative value as well in polar. Move your cursor down in that area, right-click, and switch to absolute readout. Now move your cursor back up again and move along the positive direction, and you can see that it's showing our absolute 2.25 from the 0x and 0 from the 0y. Move your cursor towards the upper right and watch the dynamic readout. Again, showing a positive relative polar distance and angle. Pause for a moment. Look at the absolute values in the status bar. They are positive as well. You're on the positive quadrant of the X and Y axis. Move your cursor downwards towards the bottom of the screen and observe the readouts. Dynamic input still gives positive relative distance while the status bar shows X positive but a negative Y. That's because you're in the lower quadrant. Move your cursor towards the left and observe the readout. The status bar shows -X, -Y. That's because you're in that quadrant now. Look at the angular dynamic input. It now reads over 90 degrees because you passed the 90-degree axis mark. So in our case, it's reading around 140 degrees. Lastly, move the cursor upwards. The status bar shows -X and +Y. And looking at the angular dynamic input, it now reads over 90 degrees because again you passed the 90 degrees in the Y axis. So now it's 143 degrees measured from 0x. The way we set up this drawing, the angles are measured from the positive X axis and rotate in a counterclockwise manner. This will be important to remember when we start drawing arcs later on. You don't really need to draw any lines. Let's just save our drawing. Hit escape. Press save.